Hey, my name is Liam. I'm 25 years old and I work as a carpenter in the outskirts of Portland. My days revolve around building houses that all look the same, starting at dawn with the buzz of saws and ending with sweat-soaked clothes and sore muscles. I wake up before the sun in my small rented house, a one-bedroom place with creaky floors and a leaky faucet I keep meaning to fix. Breakfast is usually black coffee and toast, grabbed on the way to the... By the time I get there, the crew's already unloading lumber, and Jake, my foreman and closest buddy, is barking orders with his usual grin. Jake's the kind of guy who's always got a story or a plan. We've been working together for 3 years now, ever since I dropped out of community college to take up the trade full-time. He's older, married with kids, and he treats me like a little brother, always pushing me to get out more, meet people. "You can't just hammer nails all day and call it a life, Liam," he'd say, slapping my back. I shrug it off most times. Truth is, I'm not great with girls. Never have been. My last date was over a year ago, some awkward setup through a mutual friend that fizzled out after one dinner. Jake knows this, which is why he wouldn't let up about this blind date. It started we were framing a new roof, sweat dripping under the Oregon drizzle, when he pulled me aside during lunch. "Listen, man, I've got this friend of a friend. She's single, nice, and I think you'd hit it off." I wiped my forehead with my sleeve, shaking my head. "Come on, Jake, I'm not in the mood for setups." But he kept at it, his eyes lighting up like he was selling me a winning lottery ticket. "She's a bit special, okay? Just be polite. Show up. Have a coffee. What's the harm?" He clapped my shoulder hard enough to make me wince. "Trust me, Liam, you need this." I sighed, figuring one afternoon wouldn't kill me. "Fine, but if it's weird, I'm blaming you." Saturday rolled around faster than I wanted. I spent the morning in my garage workshop sanding down an old oak table I'd salvaged from a demo site. It was my side hobby, restoring furniture, giving beat-up pieces a second life. Kept my hands busy and my mind off. By afternoon, I showered, scrubbed the sawdust from under my nails, and picked out my cleanest shirt, a blue button-up that didn't have any stains. On the way to the cafe, I stopped at a flower stand near the riverfront market. The vendor, an old guy with a mustache, suggested white daisies. "Simple and sweet," he said. I nodded, paying with crumpled bills from my pocket. Holding the bouquet felt awkward, like I was playing a role in someone else's story. The cozy cup was tucked in a quiet corner of downtown Portland, the kind of place with exposed brick walls, mismatched chairs, and strings of warm, yellow lights dangling from the ceiling. The air smelled like cinnamon and fresh-baked scones, with soft jazz playing in the background. Jake had texted me the details. "She'll be by the window, wearing a pine green coat." I pushed open the door, the bell jingling softly, and scanned the room. A few couples chatted in corners, a group of friends laughed over pastries, and there, at the table by the window, was her, Clara. Her brown hair was tied low in a ponytail, strands framing her face. The pine green coat was draped over her chair, revealing a simple sweater underneath. She sat with a mug in hand, gazing out at the street where rain had started to patter against the glass. From a distance, she looked calm, composed. But as I approached, I saw it. The right side of her face. The skin was wrinkled and mottled with pinkish spots, remnants of old burns. A large scar ran from her cheek down to her chin, pulling the features slightly askew. It wasn't subtle. It was the kind of mark that told a story without words. I paused mid-step, not out of revulsion, God no, but pure surprise. Jake's "a bit special" suddenly made sense, and a wave of uncertainty hit me. What was I supposed to say? How do you act normal when you're caught off guard? She turned then, catching my eye. Her gaze was sharp, assessing, like she was used to reading reactions before people even spoke. I forced a smile, stepping forward. "Clara," I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. She nodded, gesturing to the seat across from her. "Liam, right? Jake mentioned you'd be the one with the flowers." Her smile was cautious but genuine, crinkling the unscarred side of her face. I set the daisies on the table and pulled out the chair, the wood scraping lightly on the floor. Up close, the scar was more pronounced, but her eyes, hazel and alert, held mine without flinching. "Yeah, that's me," I said, sitting down. "Jake's full of ideas. Hope this isn't too awkward. She chuckled softly, a warm sound that eased the tension a bit. Awkward's my middle name these days, but thanks for coming. And the flowers, they're lovely. I glanced around, noticing a few patrons stealing looks our way, but I pushed it aside. No problem. Jake said you're an illustrator? Sounds a lot more interesting than swinging a hammer all day. We ordered me a black coffee, her a refill on her latte, and the conversation started slow, like testing the waters. I didn't stare, didn't avoid her face either, just talked, like I would with anyone. But inside, my mind raced. What happened to her? How do I not mess this up? Still, her laugh came easier as we went on, and for the first time that day, I felt like maybe Jake wasn't completely off base. As our drinks arrived, the conversation flowed easier than I expected. Clara stirred her latte slowly, the steam curling up between us, and asked about my work. So, carpentry, do you build entire houses or just fix things? I leaned back, sipping my coffee, the bitter warmth grounding me. A bit of both. Right now, we're framing a new development out in Beaverton. Rows of identical homes, all cookie cutter. Steady pay, but sometimes I miss the smaller jobs, like restoring old furniture. There's satisfaction in taking something broken and making it whole again. She nodded, her eyes lighting up a fraction. That sounds almost artistic. I get that. My work's similar in a way. She told me about her illustrations for children's books. I freelance mostly from home, digital stuff, since... She trailed off, flexing her right hand subtly, the skin there taut and scarred like her face. It's easier on the tools. I draw animals, adventures, that sort of thing. Kids love the bright colors, the happy endings. I pictured her at a desk, stylus in hand, creating worlds where everything turned out okay. Must be rewarding, I said, seeing your art in a book someone's reading to their kid. Clara smiled, but it was measured, like she was holding back. Though some days the screen glare gets to me. Portland's rain doesn't help, makes everything feel a little gray. We shifted to lighter topics. The bridge repairs clogging up traffic downtown, the best scones in the cafe, she swore by the blueberry ones, and how Portland's food trucks were a lifesaver on busy days. I shared a story about a job gone wrong, a beam that slipped and nearly took out a window, and she laughed, her voice carrying just enough to draw a glance from the barista. But as we talked, I couldn't ignore the occasional stares from other patrons. A woman at the next table whispered to her friend, their eyes flicking toward Clara's scar before darting away. An older couple by the door did a double-take as they left. Clara must have noticed too because her posture stiffened slightly, her free hand brushing her cheek unconsciously. I kept my focus on her, asking about what drew her to Portland. The community, I guess, she said, tracing the rim of her. It's got that artsy vibe without being overwhelming. I moved here after some changes, needed a fresh start. Her voice dipped, but she recovered quickly. What about you? Born and raised? I nodded. Yeah, grew up in the suburbs. Parents still live nearby, but I moved out young. Wanted my own space. We compared notes on favorite spots, the rose gardens in Washington Park, the weekend markets along the river. She liked the quiet trails for sketching. I preferred the woodworking shops hidden in industrial areas. The cafe hummed around us, plates clinking, conversations blending into a soft murmur. Clara seemed to relax more, her shoulders dropping as she leaned forward. But then, midway through a story about a quirky client who'd requested a dragon in a bedtime book, she paused. Her eyes met mine directly, searching. You're not asking about the scar, she said. The words hung there, and I felt the air thicken. I set my cup down, meeting her gaze without flinching. I'll ask if you want to tell me, I replied honestly. Otherwise, I'm more interested in what you're drinking today. Or if you'd recommend that scone. Her expression softened, the caution in her eyes giving way to something warmer, almost relieved. She let out a small breath, like she'd been holding it. Most people can't help themselves. They stare or they pretend not to, but it's always there. I shrugged lightly. People are curious doesn't mean it's their business. Clara nodded, her fingers tapping the table. I like that about you. No pity, no rush. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the rain picking up outside, streaking the window beside us. Then she continued, "It's from an accident, but that's a story for another time. Right now, I'd rather hear about that furniture you restore. Got any pictures?" I pulled out my phone, scrolling to some before and after shots of the oak table I'd been working on. As she leaned in to look, our shoulders nearly touching, I felt a shift. Not pity, not awkwardness, but a genuine pull. She pointed out details I hadn't noticed, suggesting stains or finishes, her enthusiasm infectious. By the time our cups were empty, the initial surprise from seeing her scar had faded into the background. We exchanged numbers as we stood to leave, the bell jingling again. "Text me if you want to grab those scones sometime," I said. Clara smiled, tucking her phone away. "I will. Thanks for not making this weird, Liam." Walking out into the drizzle, I glanced back through the window, seeing her gather her coat. For the first time in a while, I felt like maybe Jake's push wasn't such a bad idea after all. After that first meeting at the Cozy Cup, things shifted in a way I hadn't anticipated. We texted the next day, nothing heavy, just a quick, "Thanks for the coffee. Those scones were as good as you said." From Clara, and my reply, "Anytime. Let me know if you want to try the rose garden sometime." It felt natural, no pressure. A few days later, she suggested meeting at Laurelhurst Park on Saturday morning. "Early, before it gets crowded," she added. I agreed without hesitation. That Saturday dawned crisp and clear, the kind of Portland morning where the air smells like damp earth and pine. I stopped at a bakery on my way, picking up a box of assorted pastries, croissants, muffins, the works. The park was quiet when I arrived, joggers looping the paths, ducks quacking by the pond. Clara was already there, sitting on a bench under a massive oak tree, a thermos in hand and her sketch tablet on her lap. She waved when she saw me, her pine green coat from the cafe swapped for a light jacket. "Morning," she said, standing to greet me. "Brought tea, ginger with a bit of honey, helps with the chill." We settled on the bench, the box of pastries between us. I poured the tea, steam rising in the cool air, and we nibbled while chatting about the week. My stories were about a stubborn roof truss that nearly toppled during install. Hers about a picky editor who wanted a unicorn redrawn 5 times. As the sun climbed higher, filtering through the leaves, Clara opened her tablet. "Mind if I sketch a bit? The light here's perfect." I shook my head. "Go for it, I'd love to see." She started with quick strokes, digital pen gliding across the screen, bringing a whimsical fox to life, its fur vibrant orange against a forested background. "This one's for a story about adventure," she explained, zooming in on the details. Her right hand moved carefully, fingers stiff at times, but she adapted, using shortcuts on the tablet. I watched quietly, fascinated by how she layered colors, adding depth with shadows and highlights. After a while, she switched to something more personal, a self-portrait sketch. In it, her face was half illuminated, the scarred side blurred into shadow, like it was fading into the background. "I do these for myself," she said softly, not looking up. "Helps process things." The park filled up gradually, families with dogs, kids on scooters, but we stayed in our bubble. Clara set the tablet aside eventually, sipping her tea. "You know, I wasn't sure about meeting again," she admitted. "People say yes, but then things change." I met her eyes. "I'm glad you did. No changes here." She smiled, then paused as if deciding something. "The accident was 4 years ago," she began, her voice steady but distant, like recounting a news. "I was driving home late from a freelance gig. It was raining hard, visibility 0. A truck ran a red light, slammed into my side. The car caught fire. I don't remember much after that. Woke up in the hospital weeks later, bandaged head to toe. The burns were worst on my face and right hand. Doctors said I was lucky to survive, but..." She trailed off, flexing her fingers again. "Luck feels different when you can't hold a pencil the same way." I listened without interrupting, the weight of her words settling in. The scar wasn't just skin deep. It carried the echo of that night. She spoke lightly, almost detached, like it belonged to someone else. "Friends drifted away after. Dates? Forget it. People see the scar first, me second." Her eyes flicked to the pond where a duck family paddled by. I didn't rush to fill the silence. Instead, I placed my hand on the bench between us, palm up. An invitation, not. Clara glanced at it, then at me. Slowly, she reached over, her fingers cool against mine. She held on for a long moment, her pulse steady and real under my touch. No tears, no breakdown, just a quiet sharing. "Thanks for not making it a big deal," she whispered. We sat like that until the tea grew cold, the connection deepening without words. From there, our meetings became a routine. We'd walk along the Willamette riverfront, the water lapping at the banks, sharing books. Me recommending woodworking manuals, her fantasy novels with intricate worlds. One evening, we found a spot on a grassy knoll to watch the sunset, the sky turning shades of orange and pink over the bridges. Clara leaned back on her elbows, sketching idly on her phone. "This city's got a way of making you feel small, in a good way," she said. I agreed, feeling the pull toward her grow stronger. Her strength wasn't loud. It was in the way she kept creating, kept showing up. And in those moments, I realized her beauty wasn't despite the scar. It was woven into who she was, resilient and profound. As our routine of quiet meetings deepened, I suggested something a little bolder, a free outdoor concert at Waterfront Park. It was one of those summer evenings in Portland where the city comes alive. Food trucks lining the paths, families spreading blankets on the grass, and local bands playing under string lights draped between trees. "It's low-key," I told Clara over text. "Just music and fresh air." She hesitated at first, replying with a simple, "Okay, but early arrival." I knew why, the crowds. But she agreed, and I picked her up that Friday evening, the sun still hanging low over the Willamette River. Clara stepped out of her apartment wearing a long-sleeved blouse and jeans, a light scarf loosely tied around her neck to partially shield her face. She looked put together, but I caught the tension in her posture, the way her hands fidgeted with the strap of her bag. "You sure about this?" I asked as we drove downtown, the radio humming softly. She nodded, forcing a smile. "It's been forever since I've done something like this. Might be good for me." We parked a few blocks away and walked to the park, the air buzzing with anticipation. Vendors hawked glowing bracelets and cotton candy, kids darted through the growing throng, and the first band was tuning up on stage. We found a spot near the back, away from the densest part of the crowd, and spread out a blanket I'd brought from my truck. Clara sat close, her knees drawn up, scanning the faces around us. The music started, a folksy indie group with upbeat rhythms, and people began swaying, clapping along. At first, it was fine. We shared a bag of popcorn from a nearby stand, commenting on the lyrics or the guitarist's riffs. But as the set progressed and more people arrived, I noticed the shifts. A group of teens nearby glanced over, one whispering to another, their eyes lingering on Clara's scar. An older woman walking by did a subtle double-take, her expression a mix of curiosity and pity. Then, during a break between songs, I heard it, a low murmur from behind us. "Poor thing. What happened to her face?" Clara froze, her hand tightening on the blanket. She pulled her scarf higher, angling her body away from the crowd. "This was a mistake," she muttered, her voice barely audible over the chatter. I turned to her, seeing the flush creep up her neck, her eyes darting like she was searching for an exit. "Everyone's staring." She started to stand, gathering her things. "I should go. You stay. Enjoy the show." But I reached out, gently catching her wrist. "Hey, wait." She looked down at me, her expression a storm of vulnerability and frustration. The next band was starting, a slower melody filling the air, but it felt distant now. I stood up with her, pulling her aside to a quieter edge of the grass, away from the main cluster. "Clara, talk to me." She wrapped her arms around herself, glancing back at the crowd where a few more heads had turned. "I'm not used to this. At home, alone, it's easy. But out here, they see it. They always see it first." Her voice cracked slightly, and she withdrew her hand from mine, stepping back. "If you're embarrassed, Liam, if this is too much, you can walk away. I won't blame you, really." The words hit like a punch, but not because they were true. I shook my head, stepping closer, my voice firm but low amid the swelling music. "No one embarrasses me but me. And right now, I'm proud to be here with you." I reached for her hand again, this time holding it steady, my thumb brushing her knuckles. "Those stares, they're not about us. They're about them not knowing how to look away." Clara searched my face, her eyes wide and uncertain, tears glistening but not falling. The band launched into a ballad, slow and haunting, lyrics about love pushing through storms echoing around us. Slowly, her grip tightened on mine, and she let out a shaky breath. Instead, we moved back to our blanket, hand in hand. The stares didn't stop entirely. A kid pointed once, quickly hushed by his parent. A couple nearby exchanged whispers, but Clara didn't shrink away. As the song built, she leaned into me, her head resting lightly on my shoulder. It was the first time she'd let herself be vulnerable like that in public, exposed under the open sky. A tear slipped down her cheek, catching the light from the stage, but she wiped it away with a small smile. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice blending with the melody, "for not letting go." In that moment, surrounded by strangers and sounds, I realized this wasn't just kindness or curiosity anymore. It was commitment, raw and real. The concert blurred into the night, songs fading one into another, but that grip on her hand stayed with me, a silent promise amid the noise. By the time the last notes rang out and the crowd applauded, Clara was standing taller, her scarf loosened, her face turned toward the stars. We walked back to the car in silence, the river breeze cool on our skin, and I knew we'd crossed a line neither of us could uncross. After that concert, our relationship settled into a rhythm that felt as natural as the changing seasons in Portland. It wasn't flashy or filled with grand gestures, no surprise trips or elaborate dates. Instead, it was built on the small things, the everyday moments that wove us closer without fanfare. Every week, I'd swing by her favorite bubble tea spot on my way home from a job site, picking up 2 large cups, one taro for her, one matcha for me. She'd greet me at her door with a batch of homemade waffle cookies, crisp on the edges and soft in the middle, dusted with powdered sugar. "Your timing's perfect," she'd say, handing me a plate still warm from the oven. We'd spend evenings walking along the river paths, the Willamette's current murmuring beside us as the city lights flickered on. Sometimes we'd talk about nothing important. The quirky squirrel in the park that stole her sketchbook once, or the new coffee blend at the Cozy Cup. Other times we'd dream small. A weekend drive to the Oregon coast where we could hunt for seashells and watch the waves crash. Planting a sunny garden patch behind her apartment, with herbs and wildflowers she could sketch. Or her creating a custom illustration just for me, maybe of the tools in my workshop brought to life like characters in one of her books. These plans weren't set in stone, but voicing them made the future feel approachable, less daunting. There were tough days, too. Clara had moments when the self-doubt crept in, triggered by a rude stare at the grocery store or a bad angle in a mirror. She'd withdraw, sitting on her couch with her tablet untouched, staring at the blank screen. "Some days, it all comes back," she'd admit, her voice small. I wouldn't try to fix it with words or distractions. Instead, I'd sit beside her in silence, offering a gentle hug if she leaned in, my arm around her shoulders like a steady anchor. No pressure, just presence. And on my rough days, after a long shift, where everything went wrong like a mismeasured beam that set us back hours, I'd show up at her place exhausted, collapsing into a chair. She'd brew tea, then spin a silly story about a fox learning to fly with paper wings, her voice animated, gestures bringing the tale alive until I was laughing, the weight of the day lifting. Those exchanges balanced us. She taught me patience, how to listen without solving. I showed her that vulnerability didn't mean weakness. Our bond grew quietly, like roots spreading underground, strong and unseen. We didn't label it, boyfriend, girlfriend, just let it be what it was. My birthday fell on a rainy Tuesday in early fall. I hadn't made plans, work had me tied up until late, and I figured it'd pass like any other day. But when I got home, muddy boots tracking in from the site, there was a note taped to my door. "Come over when you're cleaned up." See, I showered quickly, curiosity pulling me across the street to her apartment. She answered with a soft smile, ushering me in. The table was set simply, a homemade lasagna bubbling in the oven, candles flickering. Dinner was comfortable, filled with her stories from the day, a new book commission about woodland creatures, and my complaints about a finicky client. After we ate, she pushed the package toward me. "Open it." I tore the paper carefully, revealing a framed sketch. Us under the oak tree at Laurelhurst, her stylus capturing the dappled light, our hands intertwined. The scar on her face was there, unhidden, rendered with delicate lines that made it part of the beauty, not a flaw. It was raw, honest, and it hit me hard. I stared at it, throat tight. Clara? This is incredible. She watched me, a mix of nerves and hope in her eyes. I wanted you to see us how I do, no shadows. I set it down, reaching across the table for her hand. I never thought I could be this happy with something so simple. Her fingers laced with mine, warm and sure. As long as you don't let go of my hand in a crowd. The words echoed back to that concert night, a quiet vow renewed. We spent the rest of the evening on her couch, rain tapping the windows, sharing slices of cake she'd baked. No big celebrations, just us. From then on, no matter the curious glances at the market or the old wounds that surfaced on hard days, I chose to stay. For me, the girl by the window wasn't defined by her scars. She was about bravery, the kind that opens hearts despite the risks, and a love quiet enough to outlast any